watching a bunch of people's videos about tech sales, it sounded like it wasn't easy to break in. And I was like, well, I don't even have any experience. Like, I don't really know all like the nuances of getting into these type of situations. I think actually my first one, I emailed a guy from Google and he got back to me. So right away, I'm like, oh my God. Like my first email was sent back and I get one from Google. I was like, yeah, that was when everything took off because I stopped caring if there was like even like 1,000 like applications. I didn't really care. I would say for me, the biggest difference I think was
I'm really excited this week to share Chad's story, who just broke into Twilio, a market-leading tech company, and he did so with no past tech or sales experience, coming over from the hospitality industry. One of the things that's going to be super valuable if you're trying to break in and watching this story is that Chad admits that he failed his first ever tech sales interview like horribly. Literally said it was one of the most embarrassing moments of his life. And I don't say that to make fun of Chad. I say that to commend him because he got out there, he failed very quickly, and then because of that failure, really quickly adjusted his approach and did things that, quite frankly, you can't learn from just reading a book, just watching a video. Chad, we're really excited. Credit to you for getting after this process so quickly. We know you're gonna do great things at Twilio, and I know everyone watching is gonna get a ton out of this conversation.
Hey everybody, really excited to speak with Chad this week, who just broke into Twilio, a great company. And I know also you had multiple offers, multiple interviews going on in parallel. So a lot to learn here. But Chad, maybe setting the stage as we get into it, tell us a little bit about your background and what got you looking at tech sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Really what got me looking into tech sales was wanting to maximize like my potential like per financial gain. Like, to be honest with you, that was like the beginning of it. And then just through some, I guess, inner research as well as like outer research, trying to see like what works, I kind of like found tech sales, and I felt like it was an avenue where I could really put my skills on display mixed with like my work ethic, and it could kind of like reward me like the best. So yeah, that's definitely what brought me to tech sales.
That's awesome. And as you started to discover tech sales and maybe had a lot of interest there, I'm curious, before looking at the higher levels community and whatnot, had you tried anything on your own? Were you applying to places already? What did that kind of progression look like?
Yeah, I applied to a couple places just thinking it was just like a normal situation, and I didn't even have LinkedIn Premium, so I didn't know how many people were really like truly applying. So I thought everything was okay. And then really only a couple places. And then, but I was also doing research on YouTube, and I found your videos, found out it's not just as simple as just applying on their company website. There needs to be like a lot more work done. So yeah, and then once I kind of found that out, I also saw some stuff about, some other like boot camps, like, obviously the big one that like Course Careers, but I don't know. I'm not really into, I don't know. It just felt super weird, to be honest. Like the people, like how they were talking was just like weird to me. So I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to do that. And then your videos were just super straightforward, and it felt like you were just someone I would probably get along with in the real world. Like you're just a straight shooter. So I started looking more into your stuff, and then I obviously found the course. And then I reached out to some people who have done the course, and they were like, yeah, this is a good situation. This is like where you want to be if you want to like expedite the process. And I wanted to expedite the process. So, I just, did it.
Nice, man. Well, obviously we're pretty grateful that you trusted us and you crushed it. So kudos to you. I guess now that you've been through the course, you've gone through the training. Well, actually, let me backtrack. So like,
okay,
when you first initially like joined the program, was there a specific segment that you were looking for help in, like more than others? Some people join, they want help with like their resume, they want help with, their interviewing skills. Like, was there a specific thing that you were super targeted on, or was it mostly just like, hey, I want to do this faster, I don't want to waste my time, and this kind of seems like the place to do it?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I would say I just wanted to make the process go quicker. Through watching a bunch of people's videos about tech sales, it sounded like it wasn't easy to break in. And I was like, well, I don't even have any experience. I don't think I don't really know all like the nuances of getting into these type of situations. So I figured, and I looked at my resume too. I was like, I just feel like I just need a revamp of everything, not just my resume. I was like, you know what? I just got to start from scratch. So I just yeah, I just dove right in, and thank God I did.
Nice.
Sure.
I love it, man. I love it. And I guess after going through the program, you went through everything. Which part was the most valuable to you? Like, was there a specific area where you felt like, oh, I changed this or I adjusted this and then I started getting much better results? Or like, was there an area like that?
I would say for me, the biggest difference I think was 100% finding who to reach out to. I personally think that was like 100% like the biggest like leg up you have if you know about that. Like how to find them, who to look for, which is also good because as you guys mentioned, it's kind of like you're doing the job before you got the job. But yeah, that was when everything took off because I stopped caring if there was like even like 1,000 like applications. I didn't really care because I was like, if I can find people who could, like you guys kept saying, like influence the decision. I was like, that's all I really need. And, I even got to a point where I was, for like, say it was a startup, I even like cold called like some CEOs, like, even though I was terrible, but I didn't really care. Yeah, so I would say just finding people to like the portion where, you kind of gave us like an outline of kind of the type of introductory email to these managers, even like directors, whatever it may be. And then, yeah, and just sending it out, cold emailing them and just seeing who bites. And I would say from that, I want to say I got maybe like, I want to say like a 60% reply rate, to be honest with you, from like those managers. Because of so many people, because they would always say like, we'll reward you for doing the extra effort because so many people weren't doing it. So yeah, because I think actually my first one, I emailed a guy from Google. And obviously, Google is the biggest, software company. And he got back to me. So right away, I'm like, oh my God. Like my first email was sent back and I get one from Google. I was like, and he's like trying to kind of help me out. I was like, say less. And then, so I just started doing that with like any company. Like I didn't really care. I just started doing that and I would always get like replies. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
that's awesome, man. I know before we were recording, one thing I want to double tap on, if you're cool with it, is you mentioned the first interview you had, you failed. But
Yeah.
quite frankly, like I think that's a huge piece of this process. It's like a lot of people, whether they study too much, I don't think that was the case with you. You took action pretty quickly. But also one of the things you mentioned, and I'll let you expand upon, is like training, preparing for your answers and all these different things, but you found not actually practicing them out loud may have hindered you. But before I share your story, I'd love you to share, just for everyone's reference, like how real it was, that first interview, how poorly it went, but also what you learned and how you adjusted.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, 100%. But I learned a lot from it. It was with like a super like unicorn like company that's just exploding right now. And I think I was just so happy to even have the opportunity to interview. And I studied like crazy for it, like their products. And it was, and as it says in the course, the recruiter interviews that you don't necessarily need to be so like technically versed just yet, but I was just so like happy about this. And then she just asked me a simple question, tell me about yourself. And my brain literally stopped working because all I did was prepare for like the technical side because I just wanted to impress them. I was like, I think I was coming out of desperation and I just wanted to impress them, show them how much research I'm willing to do. And I didn't practice out loud like the soft answers, like tell me about yourself. And then it embarrassed me so bad that I called anyone and everyone I knew and trying to learn how to like properly answer that question and make it into a story. But because I was embarrassed so much is why I went so far in trying to figure out how to make that like a perfect answer. And then, so nonetheless, I'm very thankful for the experience, but it was absolutely awful in the moment.
Yeah. And maybe as a add on to that, like you go through that, you kind of learn to adjust. What were some of maybe the major things you changed that made it better the next time around?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one thing I adjusted was making my answer more of a story rather than just like bullet points. I think in general, what I've learned even through like the interview process is obviously, you want to be sound like technically and, not be an idiot, quite frankly, but you still definitely need to realize it's a human being who's interviewing you and they don't want you to sound like a robot, and So, just be real with them, tell them about your story and like actually tell them what brought you to this interview. At the end of the day, you're interviewing with them. So, you should make everything like tie it all around back to like, okay, like why are we here in the first place? And make it a story, make it something that, I mean, it doesn't need to be entertaining, but make it something that they can kind of be like, okay, like that's pretty cool, And so tying it all together was definitely the biggest thing that I made an adjustment to, rather than just like stating, oh, I did this, 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 and this, which is things that they can just read on the resume.
No, it's awesome advice. And like, obviously, I think failing is a part of this. And what we stress all the time too is what a difference it makes to actually practice saying these things out loud. I just see a lot of people that will like capture that in their head, or they look at the mirror and aren't actually saying it out loud. And it makes such a difference if you said it out loud a ton before going into those interviews. And awesome nuggets, lots of great advice there. Kind of focused on that first round interview, but maybe more broadly throughout the things you learned with all the interviews that you had. Do you have advice to any other students that are trying to prepare for beyond just that recruiter interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, first off, for sure, take the course very seriously, because there's, a lot of like the questions that they present to you in like the videos in the course are exactly the questions you're going to hear. So practice those questions again with the same thing. Like you want to create everything into like, I at least think into like some sort of story. Like don't sound like a robot. Like don't sound weird. Like still be a human being, and definitely just practice, practice your answers out loud to yourself. But everything, definitely this part. Because at the end of the day, you're selling yourself. So to, this person. So I think when you're having like these questions and these answers, it's really important to tie in some sort of information you've taken in about their product or about their industry or anything. That was one thing I always noticed whenever I would start tying in like their product to my answers, and just in some way, shape, or form, I would always see them go like, and like take a little note or something like that. So I was like, oh, okay, so this really must work. So yeah, definitely as much as you possibly can, know their product, know their industry, and be able to speak on it within the answers that you give, like even like a behavioral answer, like somehow figure out, okay, like how can I weave this in? And as well, I would say at the end of the day, they want to make sure that you're going to come in and you're going to hit the numbers, you're going to book the meetings as an SDR. So just make everything also like geared towards that. Like I remember a couple times they were like, well, we're also interviewing people who have like 2 to 3 years of SDR experience and they want to pivot into like a bigger company. They're like, why would we choose you? I was like, well, experience doesn't really have anything to do with, being like relentless, or like it doesn't take experience to be able to pick up the phone and do more calls than anybody else. So I was like, and I'm like the type of person who's relentless. So regardless, of who's bringing in, I will 100% outwork them. And I think when they hear that and like really instilling that, obviously, hopefully it's true as well, but instilling that like in your answers and making sure they know, okay, like no matter what, you're going to get it done. Like it's not even an option if you're going to get it done or not. And making sure you're really like presenting that in all of your answers, I think really helps, because at the end of the day, if you could be a great personality guy or whatever. And these are things that I heard, through the managers that were talking, like, it doesn't really matter. Like at the end of the day, if you don't book the meetings, you're no use to them. So what's the goal here? They want you to book meetings. So make everything kind of clearly that you're going to do that.
Nice. Yeah. I like the confidence too. I think like, it's funny because it can sound so cliche to say something like that, but it's the way that you say it, right? Like anybody can say, I'm a hard worker, but if you present it like that and you actually add some context and you've had a really, really good like meeting up until then yeah, like that kind of can seal the deal, right? And so I like the theme of this too, because like you came in, and I see a lot of students do this too, where they're in this vacuum, they're doing all this research, and they're like mapping out every single little thing, and they want to be, and honestly, that's me. Like that's how I was. But then they get out into the real world and it's like, oh shit, like this is not as easy as just like reading off of a script and then like getting the job. So I think something comes with that of like, you got to go out there and have actual reps. right? And it's going to be really like awkward, to be honest with you, like those first few times. That's where we see the largest drop off, unfortunately, is like we have some people that are just absolute killers, like got these crazy resumes. But honestly, it's the opposite that usually ends up being successful the fastest, because they feel like they have something to prove and they feel like they got to go out there and get all these reps in. So anyway, getting pretty deep here, but I think even taking a step back, like you've been through this whole process. You've kind of gone through like all the different steps now, the ups and downs. I guess like if you could go back in time, maybe give your younger self some advice, or maybe other folks out there who are considering like a tech sales career, who are, you know, maybe going through the same thing that you're going through, anything you want to leave them with?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a few things. One thing is you don't want to be desperate going into these interviews, because I think I was doing that at the beginning because I wanted to just get into it so bad that I was like willing to just, but don't be desperate, because I mean, obviously that's just common knowledge. You don't want to have someone working for you who's desperate. That's just like weird, you know? So don't be desperate, you know, but obviously still realize that, you know, they're bringing you on. So you do need to present them with, you know, a good candidate. But yeah, for sure, don't be desperate. Practice your answers heavily, like super heavily, and understand like what they're looking for as an SDR. They're looking for people who are, at the end of the day, going to book meetings, pick up the phone, do all those things. So everything you do needs to be geared towards them understanding that you are willing to do that and above and beyond. And like I was definitely learning throughout the process is, don't make yourself seem like you're trying to hit the quota, but make yourself seem like someone who's trying to like 3x your quota. And I think when you, because I mean, obviously, again, if that's what you're actually planning to do, which I am planning to do that, weave that into how you're talking to them, and weave that into your own, I guess, aura of like how you're going about the conversation. But definitely just be yourself too. You know, don't try and be weird or like different. Because I think, again, I was trying to do that at the beginning a little bit, being a little desperate, just trying to be what you think they want. But, you know, be yourself, but in that direction of what they want.
Nice.
I would say that would be, because then everybody can always tell if you're not being organic. So.
No, I love it, man. I think you have a really cool, like natural confidence to you. And I think that's something that happens over time. Right. And I think you're a core example of just like, you get in there, you got to go through like the tough shit, right? It's not easy, but once you get a little bit of wind, you build up that confidence and you can exhibit some of that aura that you're talking about. Right. And I think so many people kind of give up before they get into that position where it's like, oh snap, like I fail once and I'm not cut out for this. When in reality, like the other person that's getting the job is maybe just like, they went through like 2 rejections and they decided, let me just give this like one more shot. Right. So I love it, man. I think lots of golden nuggets in here. Really appreciate the time, Chad. And I think there's a lot of gold in here for other people out there watching. We're going to drop Chad's LinkedIn down below. So Chad, like if you're not too busy ramping into your role at like arguably one of the best tech sales companies in the world, definitely hit him up. Lots of good stuff. But no, this was a really good one. Eric, I don't know if you have any famous last words.
No, just congrats again, man. I mean, Twilio is a great company, and I know, yeah, great example of what it takes to break into the process. It's not this impossible thing, but yeah, you stick through it and you get one yes, and now all of a sudden you're at a great company. Even though you had setbacks, doesn't really matter now. So really excited for you, man.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it, guys. Anyone who's watching, you should take higher levels. It's it's very much worth your time and money.